Hey tribe, Sally here. Hope you're having an amazing and fascinating day. I know I am. Welcome back. It is time for my next video. We're going to be talking about boondocking today. I have spent hundreds of nights boondocking all over the country.
Go ahead.
In forests, in deserts, in Walmart parking lots, in casinos, Cabela's, Lowe's, Home Depot. Done a lot of tar docking. Boat ramps, all kinds of places. And I've heard every scary story imaginable. But here's the truth. Most of what people fear about boondocking isn't even real. If you've watched my Boondocking Without Fear video, you already know that confidence comes from understanding. And that's what this one's all about. So today, we're busting the top 10 boondocking myths that keep people from enjoying one of the best parts of RV life. Before we get right into it, we're going to roll the intro, and a big shout out to my channel members and thank you for being here. Here comes the intro. We'll see you on the other side.
Wake up with the sun in our eyes. Sally forth, no need for goodbyes. Journey calls, let's roll the dice. Every mile a new surprise.
So, before we get into the myths, let's talk about what fear really is. It's an acronym I love. F.E.A.R, F-E.A.R, which equals false expectations appearing real. And that's exactly what these myths are. Stories that sound believable until you've actually been out here and seen it for yourself. And once you do, most of that fear just fades away. So let's start busting some false expectations, beginning with the big one. Boondocking is dangerous. You'll get robbed or attacked. Look, I've boondocked solo across dozens of states, all of them actually, except for Alaska and Hawaii, and I felt safer in the middle of nowhere than in most cities. And real data backs that up. Incidents are incredibly rare. So the first thing to know is trust your gut, stay aware, and remember, solitude is safety's best friend. The criminals aren't out here. The criminals are lazy. They don't want to drive from a city 10, 15 minutes even, or half an hour, 45 minutes, which is much more likely in my case. They don't want to drive out there to where we are for the possibility that they're going to be able to do something. And when it comes to safety, you know, having a dog is a pretty awesome safety alert system. So that's one of the reasons that I have Kit, one of the many reasons. I could wake him up, but I won't for a moment. All right, so that's number one. Number two, you'll get run off or ticketed. Here's the thing, guys. At least at this point, boondocking on public land is perfectly legal when you respect the rules. And so that includes things like not abusing stay limits. Usually it's 14 days on public land. Sometimes it's 16. Sometimes it's 7. Know the rules before you get committed to being out there. Don't stay longer than you should. Where I'm boondocking right now, I can stay for 30 days in a calendar year. I can do that consecutively, or I can do it over a period of all 12 months. As long as I don't exceed 30 days, I'm still within the legal limits. And keep in mind that rangers are usually helpers. They're not hunters. And for the most part, most of them are going to gladly suggest better spots. If you find, for example, in the city that you get busted by the popo for parking someplace you shouldn't have, don't do that if you can possibly avoid it. Make sure you know whether or not it's safe to park where you have. But if you get busted by the popo most of the time, they're going to give you suggestions of other places that you can go that are actually legal and safe for you to be. So keep that in mind. Number 3, you can't boondock without solar. Now, I can't well, I can. I can boondock without solar. I choose not to. You can certainly boondock without solar. It's handy to have, but it's not required. And start simple. You know, you can manage your battery system. You can use a generator sparingly. Learn what your power habits are and learn what's really important to you, and you can find out different ways to do that. Remember that having knowledge is greater than having equipment. And here's a great example for you. You know, I traveled all summer long with Barb. I have a big built-in solar system that I paid a lot of money for, obviously. panels on the roof. I've got a big inverter. I got big batteries, all the stuff. My friend Barb has an onboard generator that came with her RV, and she has an EcoFlow that I think is like 1800 watts of continuous power and 22 or 2300 watt surge, and a pretty big battery bank. In that, it's also an inverter. It's a standalone unit that she parks underneath the table in her RV, and it basically powers all of her needs. She can charge up her devices, she can run her microwave, she can run her air fryer, all the same stuff that I do. It's just that she's doing it with a portable unit. And truthfully, if I were going to do it again and start over, I might consider just doing one of the big power bank inverter systems, a big Blue Eddy or something like that, because I think you really can get what you need for less money and less complication on the front end. But I have to say, for me, my choice is to be able to plug everything into, a wall outlet just like you would in a house. That's my choice. But there's lots and lots of different ways to do it, lots and lots of different price points to do it with. They didn't stay long. That RV that's just leaving only came up here yesterday. But, some people like to move a lot. And again, I'm going to say it again. Having knowledge about what your power needs are and how your system works is greater than having equipment. If you don't have solar, here's my favorite actually. I'll try and remember to put a link in this for you. It's magnetically attached. So I've got a magnetic plate on the ceiling behind me. This is a USB light that you can change the brightness. So I'm taking it down now. You can change the color, so yellow to white. And then it'll flash. I'm going to see if I can get it. Oops. And then off, right? So I love this thing because it's super easy to be able to use instead of using the overhead lights. And part of the reason I like it is I don't really like bright light at night. If I'm watching TV or whatever, I just want a little bit of light so I can stumble around without falling over. That's the way I like to do it. And so doing things like that makes it much easier to live on the battery system that came with whatever your rig is. And if you don't have a rig, if you're in a van or a car, you're not in a fully built out RV type of situation, USB lights and USB everything make even more sense. All right, number 4, you need 4-wheel drive or a lifted rig. Not even close. There are thousands of gorgeous sites that sit just off of paved roads. Drive smart. Scout if you're unsure, and you'll find plenty of level, relatively level, easy access places. Henry approved. Now, I won't say that I don't ever scout. In fact, when we were in the Tetons, I might still have that video, we'll see. When we were in the Tetons, well, just near the Tetons, we were going for a boondocking place, and I was leading. Barb and I were still together. I'm driving up this road, and I come to a corner that makes a right-hand turn, but and goes fairly steeply uphill. All I can see are the tops of the trees that are just off the left-hand side of the road there. And so I just freaked, because if you've been with me for any time, you know I'm kind of terrified of heights. And I stopped where I was because I knew that from where I was, there was a place where I could turn around. I wouldn't have to back up more than about 100 yards or so. And I thought, rather than trying to push forward, let's just wait right here. So I got out, I walked up the road probably 1/8 of a mile or so, and I realized that all I had to do was get around that one corner, and the rest of it looked a whole lot better. And so I was able to do that. And then we came up to an area where it looked like we were going to be able to boondock, but again, it was a pretty steep uphill. And I said to Barb, I'm going to go walk up it, make sure there's room for us to be there and or room to turn around if we don't find a place before I get committed to making that turn. And so I did, and then I turned around and came back down, and it was absolutely fine. And as it turns out, we infringed on the YouTube channel Irene Iron Travels. Thanks, guys. Because they were like in a really pretty big area, and we have met before several times at escapees events and so forth, so it wasn't like we were complete strangers. But we did go join them in their chosen spot. And part of the problem with this area is that people do crowd in pretty closely. So in some ways, it was kind of a benefit to have us crowd in with them, so we didn't get, and none of us got inundated with other people that we didn't even know. So there's that. Which brings us to number 5. You'll be isolated with no help. The boondocking community is incredibly generous, and you will rarely be completely isolated. If you can find places where you can be completely isolated right now, at this stage of the game, you're traveling pretty far off the beaten path. But if you break down, someone will appear with a wrench, jumper cables, or coffee, and sometimes all three. And between cell boosters and Starlink, you're really rarely off-grid anymore. It's part of the reason I got Starlink, so that I can be further off-grid than I had been previously. Number 6, wild animals are a big threat. I promise, coyotes are not casing your fridge. Keep your food sealed up. Keep your trash contained. I don't put trash outside most of the time, and on the rare occasion when I do, I hang it off of the ladder on the back of my rig, but I do it in a dry bag. And I got this idea from Iron Travels, actually from watching one of their videos some years back. I've got a dry sack that I bought at, like you would use for water sports, for kayaking or whatever. Bought at Walmart, I think it was like $15. And if I need to store trash outside, I can take my already bagged trash, put it inside of the dry bag, inside of a trash liner, so I don't mess my dry bag up either if anything leaks, and then fold that up and hang that off of my ladder. Sorry, the flies are just awful. More flies than anybody has seen in this area at this time of year for some years. Is what it is. It's one of the not myths of boondocking. There are sometimes more bugs than you want. Anyway, so that's one way to be able to deal with that. But you want to make sure that you're keeping it contained, keeping it up off the ground, and really enjoy the soundtrack that the coyotes provide. The truth is, most wildlife really wants nothing to do with us. Now, things that could be an issue might be ants, depending on where you are. I've had ant issues. In one case, I was in an Army Corps of Engineers campground in Louisiana, I think. But it was a campground, and I got an ant infestation. In another case, I got an ant infestation in Florida last winter. It can happen. It's not hard to deal with, though, so it's not that big a deal. Again, most wildlife wants nothing to do with us. Just, respect their territory and don't do stupid stuff. Really, that's what it amounts to. I see much less wildlife than I would really like to most of the time. Number 7, you'll ruin your batteries or get stuck without power. Well, only if you ignore your system. Check your voltage, understand your draw, and you'll never wake up powerless. Think of it as learning your RV's love language. Pretty simple. I'm keeping that one simple because I do have a full electrical video coming up soon detailing all of my issues with electrical from last summer. Number 8, it's only for experienced full-timers. Well, everybody starts somewhere, and one night off-grid counts. Try a short stay near a town. Confidence grows with each sunrise. And if you haven't watched my Boondocking Without Fear video, one of my suggestions there is actually go to a campground that has hookups and don't use the hookups. That's the best way to start the very first time. You've got a fallback position that's super simple. But then after that, venture out a little bit. If you can't get to a campground with hookups, boondock in your driveway. Give that a go. Number 9, you'll destroy your RV on rough roads. Well, it's possible, I guess. Barb and I drove a lot of dirt roads this past summer. I'd say probably about 350 miles worth. And Barb is better at following the advice I'm about to give you than I am, which is take it slow, watch your clearance, and scout questionable sections on foot. Most access roads are really just dusty, not deadly. And my motto is, if the UPS truck can make it, so can I. It's pretty much the way I approach things. I had a tendency to go a lot faster than Barb did, And I think that's actually what caused some of my electrical issues last summer. I think the amount of vibration and heat and dust that I was generating as a result of that was just more than I could really handle. So I'm slowing it down from here on out on the dirt roads. And number 10, boondocking means giving up comfort. That is the biggest myth of all. With solar, lithium, good airflow, and coffee with a view, you gain comfort. The peace and quiet, that's the real luxury. And again, I live off grid just like I would live on grid. I've got all the same stuff. In fact, I've got stuff that most people don't have. I have a VR headset. That's one of my primary entertainments. And I can do that inside, I can do it outside. It's a great way to be able to get some exercise. It's a great way to explore the world. All kinds of cool stuff. But the real deal is being out in nature. The real deal is being able to have it be totally silent. In fact, that's why a lot of times I don't turn my power system on until fairly late in the day so that I can keep that quiet, because the inverter makes a little bit of noise. It's not that big a deal, but it does. And I enjoy the quiet. I really do. All right, so what do you think? Boondocking doesn't have to be scary. It's not about roughing it. It's about freeing it. And once you push past those false expectations appearing real, get over those fears, you open the door to a whole new level of independence. If this one helped, you'll love my Without Fear video. It dives deeper into that mindset shift. And let me know in the comments, what's a boondocking myth you've heard or busted yourself? Maybe your story will make it into a future mailbag episode. Until next time, make sure you sally forth and camp on. We'll see you soon.